The war had lasted too long. For 7 years, the Galactic Vorn Syndicate had burned world after world, enslaving species and turning thriving cities into dust. The Zalri Alliance, a union of 15 alien civilizations, had nearly fallen. They had technology, fleets, and numbers, but not courage. Not until the humans came. Sergeant Ethan Cole was one of those humans. He wasn't tall for his kind, nor the most handsome. He had a scar across his right cheek, messy brown hair, and sharp green eyes that carried the tired look of someone who had seen too much. What made Ethan special was simple. He never gave up. The Zalri remembered the day he arrived. A single Terran transport ship landed on the war-torn world of CosmicAdventures. Out came a small team of human soldiers wearing dented armor and carrying weapons that looked primitive by alien standards. But when the Vorn attacked, those same humans stood their ground for 36 hours straight. They fought in rain, smoke, and fire, protecting a Zalri evacuation zone until every last civilian escaped. Ethan's squad lost 8 of their 12 soldiers. He was one of the survivors. When the last Vorn ship retreated and the skies cleared, the alien commanders expected Ethan to collapse. Instead, he simply sat down, drank water from his canteen, and asked if anyone had coffee. That small act became famous. To the Zalri, it was not arrogance, it was spirit. A strange, unbreakable human spirit that refused to bow, even after endless pain. Months later, the war finally ended. The Vorn Syndicate was broken, their fleets shattered, their leaders hunted. The galaxy began to breathe again, and everywhere one name spread among the stars, Ethan Cole of Earth. He didn't like fame. To him, he was just a soldier who did his job. But the Zalri Alliance saw him as more than a hero. They saw him as the savior of EpicSciFi, the capital world that would have fallen if not for his desperate stand. And so, they summoned him to the victory ceremony. When the shuttle descended through the shining clouds of EpicSciFi, Ethan pressed his face to the glass window. The world looked unreal. Giant floating towers of crystal, silver rivers that glowed at night, and airships shaped like wings of light. The city below buzzed with millions of beings from hundreds of worlds, celebrating the end of war. Ethan sighed. "You'd think after saving the galaxy they'd let me go home," he muttered. His pilot laughed. "Come on, Sarge. You get a medal, maybe a vacation. Smile for the cameras." Ethan grinned weakly. "If there's coffee, I'll smile all day." As the shuttle landed, 2 tall alien guards escorted him through the halls of the Grand Hall of Harmony. Their armor shimmered blue and gold. They bowed deeply to him, though he didn't understand half the ceremonial words they said. The walls around him were carved from transparent stone, glowing softly with inner light. Strange alien music played, slow, beautiful, and echoing. Inside the hall, thousands waited. Members of every Zalri species filled the seats, scaled, furred, feathered, and shining. Their eyes followed the human who walked between them. Some whispered, others applauded softly, unsure of human customs. At the far end stood the High Council, robed in white, their symbols of peace glittering under the ceiling's crystal light. A tall elder with silver tendrils instead of hair raised his hands. "Sergeant Ethan Cole of Terra," he announced in perfect English, "you are the shield that stood when all others fell. You are the light that burned against the Vorn darkness. The Alliance owes you a debt that cannot be measured." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I appreciate it. Just did what needed doing." The elder smiled, showing gentle fangs. "Humility, a human trait, rare and admirable." Then his tone grew formal. "Our people have an old custom. When someone saves a world, we offer them not only honor but companionship, a bond of gratitude." Ethan frowned slightly. "Companionship?" The translator on his wrist repeated, "Lifelong bond of unity, trust, and cultural exchange." He blinked. "Oh, sure. Sounds nice, I guess." The crowd murmured approvingly. Ethan had no idea what he had just agreed to. Later, In a private chamber decorated with banners and alien light sculptures, two figures entered. Both were clearly Zalri, but different types of the same species. The first, Talira, moved gracefully, her skin a shimmering silver blue. Her eyes glowed faintly like moonlight, and she wore elegant robes with golden patterns. She looked calm, wise, and serene, like someone who could speak for hours about the stars. The second Zisha was her opposite. She was taller, with faint red scales along her arms, sharp crimson eyes, and short spiked hair that gave her a fierce warrior look. She wore partial combat armor and carried herself like someone who still expected a fight. Both bowed deeply before Ethan. The elder from the council smiled. "Sergeant Cole, these are our chosen emissaries, Talira of the Silver Order and Zisha of the Crimson Guard. Each has volunteered to serve as your bond of gratitude. You may choose one." Ethan blinked again. "Choose one?" "Yes," said the elder. "Such is our custom. The bond must be between two souls, one who gave and one who received." He looked at both of them. They were beautiful, yes, but that wasn't what caught his attention. It was the way they looked back at him, not as prizes but as people. Talira's gaze held kindness and quiet strength. Zisha's held pride and challenge. Ethan scratched his head. "Wait, so you're saying I have to pick one of them as some kind of partner?" "Indeed. They will live beside you, learn from you, and represent our unity." Ethan's mind raced. What kind of alien custom is this? He didn't want to insult anyone, but the idea of choosing between two people like they were trophies made him uneasy. He turned toward the two women. "And you both agreed to this?" Talira smiled softly. "It is an honor, human warrior. You saved millions of lives. To serve beside you would be a privilege." Zisha folded her arms. "I don't serve. I fight beside equals. If I am chosen, it will be because I earned it, not because I was offered." Ethan chuckled. "You remind me of my old squad leader." Her sharp expression softened, just a little. "Then he must have been strong. Stubborn, mostly," Ethan said with a grin. The elder coughed politely. "You must choose now, hero of Earth. Talira, the scholar who will teach peace, or Zisha, the warrior who will share your strength." The crowd in the hall fell silent, waiting for the human's decision. The translator. Drones hovered overhead, ready to echo his words across 1,000 channels. Ethan looked at Talira. Her calm eyes met his. Then he looked at Zisha, who stood tall and unflinching. He could sense both were extraordinary in their own ways. One represented grace, the other power. Both had hearts shaped by war and loss, just like him. He rubbed his chin, thinking. The silence stretched on. Aliens held their breath. Finally, Ethan shrugged and smiled. "Honestly," he said, "I don't see why I should pick one." The elder blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Ethan pointed casually at both women. "You said I have to choose one, right? But they both earned it. They both stood up when the galaxy was falling, so..." He gave a half smile. "Why not both?" The hall froze. Then, chaos. Translation drones glitched. Alien spectators gasped. A few fainted. Some clapped uncertainly. Others shouted in disbelief. The council members exchanged panicked looks as if he'd just rewritten 1,000 years of tradition in one sentence. Zisha raised an eyebrow. "You want both?" Ethan nodded calmly. "Sure. Back home, we don't like unfair choices. You both deserve it." Talira blinked in surprise, then covered her mouth to hide a laugh. "That is a very human answer." The elder stammered, "But such a thing is impossible. No one in our history has ever..." Ethan shrugged again. "Then I guess I'll be the first." Silence. Then a sound began. Laughter. It started small from somewhere in the back and spread across the hall. Aliens of every shape and color began to laugh, cheer, and chant his name. Human Ethan. "Two bonds! 2 bonds!" Zisha shook her head, amused. You're crazy, human. Ethan grinned. Yeah, I get that a lot. That night, the galaxy buzzed with news. The human has chosen too. Earthman breaks Zalri tradition. Human logic confuses entire council. Ethan sat in his guest quarters, sipping a cup of alien-made coffee that tasted a little like burnt fruit. He leaned back in his chair, watching the glowing skyline outside. The war was over, but somehow he felt like things were about to get even more complicated. He smiled to himself. Well, he murmured, at least it won't be boring. The morning after the ceremony, Ethan Cole woke up to noise. Not battle noise. Not explosions. Not soldiers shouting orders. No, this was worse. It was reporters. He opened his eyes and saw dozens of camera drones outside his window, flashing lights and recording every move. The alien city's skyline sparkled behind them, but the focus was all on him. The strange human who broke an ancient Zalri custom with one sentence. Why not both? Ethan rubbed his face and groaned. Great, I'm famous again. He pulled on a shirt and tried to ignore the cameras. On the table beside him sat 2 breakfast trays, one from Talira, neatly arranged with fruit slices and warm bread. The other from Zisha, which was just a plate of cooked meat with a note that said, "Eat protein." You look soft, Ethan laughed. Yep, definitely not boring. A few minutes later, both women entered his quarters almost at the same time. Talira bowed politely. Good morning, Sergeant Cole. I trust you slept well? Zisha crossed her arms. He can speak for himself, Silver Eyes. Talira smiled gently. Indeed, but manners are not weakness, warrior. Zisha rolled her eyes. And too many manners are just words without teeth. Ethan raised his hands. Ladies, it's too early for diplomacy fights. Let's all take a breath before someone throws breakfast. That earned him a quiet smile from Talira and a snort of laughter from Zisha. Still, he could feel the tension between them. They weren't enemies, but they weren't friends either. They were 2 different worlds trying to understand one strange human. Later that day, they were summoned to the council chamber. The massive hall was filled again. Only this time the atmosphere was sharp and uneasy. The High Council sat in silence, their golden eyes fixed on Ethan. The alien media floated above them, broadcasting everything live to billions. The same elder who had hosted the ceremony cleared his throat. Sergeant Cole of Earth, he said carefully, your decision has created quite the disturbance. Ethan nodded. Yeah, I noticed, the elder continued. Our laws do not allow dual bonding. Such things were never meant to happen. The bond of gratitude is sacred. It represents balance, not excess. Ethan tilted his head. Balance, huh? So if both of them fought for peace and both deserve honor, wouldn't choosing both be balance? Whispers spread across the room. The translator drones buzzed, repeating his words in dozens of languages. Zisha grinned slightly. He's got a point, Talira added softly. Perhaps the human sees harmony where we see rules. The elder frowned. You speak as if this chaos has reason. Talira bowed slightly. Perhaps it does. The council members murmured among themselves. Some agreed, others shook their heads. Finally, the elder sighed. Until we decide, the 3 of you will remain under diplomatic observation. You are guests of honor, but also subjects of study. Ethan blinked. So you're turning us into homework? Zisha smirked. Welcome to alien politics. Back at the guest residence, things got even stranger. Everywhere Ethan went, people stared. Some bowed. Some took pictures. Some even handed him gifts, tiny crystal charms, glowing bracelets, or strange pieces of food. He didn't understand half of it, but he tried to stay polite. Talira handled the attention with calm grace, explaining customs and greetings. Zisha kept an eye out for anyone who got too close, ready to punch a camera drone if needed. One evening, while they sat on the balcony overlooking the Silver City, Ethan turned to them. You 2 really volunteered for this whole bond thing? Talira nodded. Yes, it is a deep honor among our people. Only those who have served in war or performed great deeds can be chosen. Zisha leaned against the railing. I didn't do it for honor. I wanted to meet the human who fought on CosmicAdventures. The story said you didn't retreat even when surrounded. Ethan smiled slightly. Wasn't courage, just stubbornness. Talira tilted her head. Your kind calls that stubbornness, ours calls it will. He chuckled. Well, guess we have fancy names for the same things. Zisha looked at him seriously. Why did you really pick both of us? Ethan sipped from his cup of alien coffee. Because you both earned it. I saw enough war to know that everyone who stands for something deserves respect. I didn't save your world for medals or rewards. I did it so people like you could live. For a moment, both women said nothing. The noise of the city faded. Then Talira spoke softly. You are very human, Ethan Cole. Is that good or bad? Both, Zisha said with a small grin. Over the next few days, the news spread across the galaxy. Every media outlet covered the human with two bonds. Some called him a revolutionary. Others called him disrespectful. Some alien philosophers even debated what his choice meant for the idea of unity. On one planet, students painted murals of him with the caption, "Humans don't follow rules, they make new ones." On another, religious leaders condemned him as a heretic. Ethan ignored most of it. He just wanted to live quietly until they let him go home. But the council had other plans. They wanted him to attend more diplomatic events, dinners, and interviews. And, of course, they wanted both his bonds beside him at all times. At first, it was awkward. The trio drew attention everywhere they went. Some aliens bowed, others whispered behind their backs. A few brave ones asked for holophotos. One night at a state dinner, a Zalri official leaned across the table and whispered to Talira, "How can you share one bond with another female? Does it not insult your family?" Talira's calm smile didn't fade. On the contrary, it honors our people's lesson in humility, Zisha added dryly. Also, it's none of your business. Ethan nearly choked on his drink trying not to laugh. Days passed, and something unexpected began to happen. The two alien women who had once seemed like opposites slowly started working together. Talira handled the calm, formal side of things, meetings, media, diplomacy. Zisha handled security and logistics. She made sure Ethan didn't wander into restricted zones or get lost in alien marketplaces. Ethan, as always, was somewhere in the middle, talking, joking, making friends where he shouldn't. His natural human humor won over even the most serious aliens. One day, during a visit to a Zalri academy, a group of alien children asked him questions. A small child with blue feathers raised her hand. "Human Ethan, is it true your people are weak compared to the Vorn?" Ethan smiled. "Physically? Maybe. But humans are funny creatures. We don't like losing." Another child asked, "Then why didn't you take only one bond like tradition says?" Ethan crouched down to their level. "Because if both of your friends helped you, would you only thank one? Or both?" The children looked at each other and giggled. "Both," Ethan winked. "Exactly. Humans don't like choosing between good people." The teachers later said his visit caused a wave of excitement across the academy. The young began calling it the human lesson. That night, as the trio walked home under the twin moons, Talira said quietly, "You are changing how our children think." "Ethan, that is no small thing." Ethan shrugged. "I just told them what I believe," Zisha smirked. "And somehow the galaxy listens." He looked up at the stars. "That's the funny thing about humans. We don't mean to start revolutions, they just happen." But not everyone was happy. In the shadows of EpicSciFiTales, members of the Council of Purity, a group of traditionalists, watched him closely. They saw his growing influence as dangerous. To them, humans were unpredictable, wild, corrupting. "He has turned our sacred bond into a joke," one hissed. "His presence breaks unity," said another. "He must be corrected." Their plans were quiet but deadly, and Ethan, unaware of the danger building around him, continued his days of laughter and diplomacy, slowly earning the respect of those who once doubted him. One evening, while walking through a glowing garden filled with floating light flowers, Talira and Zisha followed silently beside him. Ethan turned, noticing how the two walked almost in rhythm now. "You know," he said, "you two have stopped arguing as much." Zisha smirked. "We've reached a truce." "For now," Talira nodded. "We have learned that difference does not mean opposition. Your presence encourages cooperation." Ethan smiled. "See, that's the whole point. We're stronger together." He didn't see the shadowy figure watching them from the balcony above. A red-eyed alien spy whispered into his comm device. "Target is bonded and unguarded. Orders?" A cold voice replied, "Wait, not yet. Let them feel safe. The fall of the human must be symbolic." Later that night, Ethan stood alone on the balcony looking over the shining city. The stars reflected on the glass towers, reminding him of Earth's night sky. He whispered to himself, maybe we're not so different after all. Inside, Tahlira and Zisha watched him from the doorway. He carries too much alone, Tahlira said softly. Zisha nodded. Then we carry it with him. Ethan Cole was starting to understand something important about aliens. They loved rules. The Zalri Alliance had rules for everything: how to greet, how to bow, how to sit, how to eat, even how to blink politely during formal meetings. Humans, on the other hand, they made rules just to break them, and now, because of one simple sentence, why not both? Ethan had accidentally broken one of the oldest laws in the galaxy. It began early that morning. The sun of Varix Prime rose in twin beams of blue and gold across the city's crystal towers. But instead of peace, chaos filled the air. Drones buzzed in the streets, reporters shouted questions, and every news channel replayed the same moment from the ceremony over and over again. Ethan choosing both Tahlira and Zisha. The alien anchors spoke dramatically. For the first time in 12,000 years, a bond has been shared. Some call it unity. Others call it madness. Who are these humans, and why do they refuse limits? Ethan sipped his morning coffee, watching the news with a tired face. You'd think I stole their moon. Zisha leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You did worse. You confused them. Tahlira smiled softly as she read a glowing data scroll. Confusion leads to change, and change frightens those who live by rules. Ethan looked at both women and sighed. You two always sound like my philosophy teacher and my drill sergeant arguing in my head. Zisha smirked. Which of us is which? Ethan grinned. You can guess. A few hours later, they were escorted to the Council of Harmony for another meeting. The chamber was crowded, full of tension. Dozens of alien delegates sat in circular rows, whispering to each other. Their glowing robes shimmered with color. The moment Ethan entered, all conversation stopped. Every eye turned to the human who had broken their sacred law. The High Elder stood and raised his voice. Sergeant Ethan Cole, you stand before the council accused of violating cultural order. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Ethan blinked. Defense? I didn't do anything wrong. I just respected both of them. Gasps echoed around the room. One alien diplomat hissed. He admits to multiplicity. Outrageous! Another shouted. The bond of gratitude is 1-to-1. It cannot be shared. Ethan scratched his head. Well, maybe it's time to change that. Silence. Then an uproar. Delegates shouted over each other, their translator drones buzzing like angry bees. The council guards looked ready to faint. Tahlira stepped forward calmly. Council members, please. The human's choice may appear strange, but perhaps it is a chance to grow. He sees balance where we see division. Zisha added with a sharp smile. If your laws can't handle fairness, maybe they're too weak. The uproar grew louder. Ethan sighed. See? This is why humans avoid big meetings. That evening, the three of them returned to their residence under heavy guard. Protesters filled the streets outside, holding glowing banners. Some shouted praise, the human way, 2 bonds for unity, while others screamed insults, blasphemy, corruption of the bond. Inside, Ethan looked out the window, shaking his head. Didn't think I'd start a revolution by accident. Zisha laughed. You did. Half the galaxy loves you, half wants to exile you. Tahlira sat quietly on the couch. Change is never clean, Ethan. It comes with pain and resistance. He turned toward her. You think I did the right thing? Tahlira's silver eyes softened. I think you did the human thing. That made him smile, but not everyone in the city smiled that night. Far below the glowing towers, in the shadowed alleys of the lower district, a secret group met in darkness. They called themselves the Council of Purity. Their leader, a tall alien named Vrixen, spoke in a cold tone. This human has defiled our most sacred bond, he said. He spreads his chaos like a disease. Already our youth whisper his name as if he were a prophet. Another member hissed. The council hesitates. They fear his fame. Vrixen's eyes narrowed. Then we act where they will not. The human must be silenced, quietly and without blame. He tapped a glowing map of the city. He attends a diplomatic feast tomorrow. That is where we end him. The next night, Ethan, Tahlira, and Zisha arrived at the Feast of Renewal, a grand celebration to mark the end of war. The banquet hall glittered with alien light and floating lanterns. Music filled the air. Ethan wore a formal uniform, clean, black, and simple. Tahlira wore a flowing silver dress that shimmered like water. Zisha had armor polished to a shine, decorated with the emblem of the Crimson Guard. They were the stars of the evening. Every alien wanted to speak with the human who broke tradition. Some praised him. Others questioned him sharply. Ethan smiled politely through it all, but he felt uneasy. Something about the room felt wrong. Too many eyes watching, too many whispers in the shadows. When the feast ended, the trio began to leave. Suddenly the lights flickered. The music stopped. "Stay behind me," Zisha said instantly, her instincts sharp. Tahlira scanned the room. Energy disruption. Controlled. This is no accident. Ethan's hand moved toward the pistol hidden under his jacket. I knew this day was going too well. From the upper balcony, several masked figures appeared holding weapons that glowed red. One of them shouted, "For purity! For the true bond!" Blaster fire erupted. Ethan pushed Tahlira down and fired back, hitting a railing. Zisha leaped forward, her energy blade igniting in a streak of crimson light. She deflected a blast and charged, moving with deadly precision. Guards screamed and scrambled for cover. Guests ran in panic. Ethan rolled behind a table and shouted, "Tahlira, get everyone out!" She nodded, pulling terrified diplomats toward the exits. Her calm voice cut through the chaos. "Follow me." "Stay low!" Zisha took down 2 attackers, but there were more coming. One of them aimed at her back. Ethan saw it and didn't think twice. He jumped over the table and fired. The shot hit the masked alien square in the chest. Zisha turned and shouted, "Nice aim, human!" "Army training," he said, grinning despite the chaos. Then a blast hit near his leg, throwing him sideways. Pain burned through him. He hit the floor hard, smoke rising around him. Tahlira ran toward him instantly. "Ethan!" Zisha covered her, slicing another attacker's weapon in half. The masked figures saw their plan failing and began to retreat, tossing smoke grenades before disappearing into the chaos. The hall filled with alarms and flashing lights. Minutes later, the room was secured by the city's defense forces. Medical drones hovered over Ethan, scanning his wounds. Tahlira pressed a hand gently on his shoulder. "You'll be fine. The shot missed your artery." Ethan winced. "Lucky me." Zisha stood near the broken balcony, her expression dark. They weren't random. They knew our route, our timing. Someone inside the council helped them. Ethan sat up slowly. "So what now? Do I get to go home yet?" Tahlira shook her head softly. "Now you have become more than a guest. You are a symbol. If you leave, they will twist your story. If you stay, you can change it." Ethan leaned back, exhausted. "Figures. I always wanted a vacation. Instead, I get a political war." Zisha smirked. "Welcome to the galaxy." That night, while medics tended to his wound, the news exploded again. Assassination attempt on human hero. Unknown extremists attack diplomatic feast. Human survives, defends aliens with his life. The public reaction was instant. Across the stars, people who once doubted him now admired him even more. Alien leaders who had mocked him began to call for investigations. The phrase, "Why not both?" became a slogan of unity, painted on buildings and broadcast in songs. Even the High Council had to admit that something had changed. The human who broke their law had now bled for their peace. In the quiet hours after midnight, Ethan sat by the window, his leg bandaged. Tahlira stood beside him, gazing at the twin moons. "You could have died today." Ethan gave a small smile. "Wouldn't be the first time." Zisha leaned against the wall. "Still, you fought like one of us. Maybe better." He chuckled. "Nah, just did what humans do, run toward trouble instead of away." Tahlira looked at him seriously. "Do you understand what you've done? The Council's laws will never be the same again. Your choice, your courage. It's forcing them to see unity differently." Ethan stared out the window. "I didn't mean to change anything. I just didn't want to hurt anyone by choosing." Zisha's sharp voice softened. "That's exactly why you changed everything." Outside, the city was alive with lights and movement. Across the galaxy, the word human had begun to mean something new, something bold, strange and inspiring. And in the shadows, the surviving members of the Council of Purity watched from afar. Furious, the humans survived, one spat. Frickson's voice was cold. "Then we make him a martyr. If he unites the galaxy, we will tear it apart." Back in his room, Ethan finally fell asleep between his 2 strange companions, one healer, one fighter, both watching over him. Tahlira whispered softly. He risks himself for others without thought. How human, Zaisha nodded. And because of that, no law can stop him. The twin moons glowed through the window as the city slept. The war was over, but a new battle, one of ideas and unity, had just begun. The sun over Varix Prime was always bright like polished crystal. For weeks after the bonding chaos the city had been celebrating, Ethan Cole had somehow become a legend, the human who chose both. His name filled alien songs, hollows, and newsfeeds, but even heroes needed sleep. Ethan sat on the balcony of the Zalri guest quarters, a mug of strong alien tea in his hand. Below the city shimmered in light and motion. Ships flew through transparent sky tunnels. Alien laughter echoed from markets. Everything seemed peaceful. Tahlira stood beside him, reading from a glowing scroll. The Council has officially declared a study into dual bonding. Your decision, Ethan, has started political debates across 6 systems. Ethan chuckled. I didn't mean to start a revolution. I just couldn't choose. Zisha leaned against the wall, polishing her weapon. You humans never choose the easy path. It is infuriating. Ethan smirked. And yet you're still here. Zisha rolled her red eyes but smiled faintly. I am here to make sure you don't break more galactic traditions. Tahlira looked up from her scroll. Admit it, Zisha. You like being part of this chaos. Zisha muttered something in her native tongue that sounded suspiciously like maybe. For the first time since the war, Ethan felt happy. These 2 alien women, once strangers, had become his closest friends. They argued, laughed, and learned from each other. The awkwardness of the bonding had faded into genuine friendship, but peace never lasted long in the galaxy. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. The city outside was too quiet. Even the hum of the defense drones had faded. His instincts, sharpened by years of battle, screamed danger. He got up and checked his blaster. Just as he reached the door, a strange shimmer appeared in the air. Tahlira's voice came softly from her room. Ethan, did you hear that? Before he could answer, the shimmer turned into a bright flash. Then the window exploded. A group of dark figures stormed in, their armor black with blue insignia, the Vorn Syndicate. The very same enemy he had fought months ago. Down, Ethan shouted. He pulled Tahlira behind a pillar and fired. One attacker dropped instantly. Zisha came running out of her room, dual blades glowing. The aliens moved fast, but Ethan moved faster. He used his small human frame to slip between blasts and fired precise shots. Zisha leapt onto a table, cutting through 2 enemies like lightning. Vorn assassins, she yelled. They must have tracked your victory. Tahlira, who wasn't a fighter, used her intelligence. She activated the shield system through her datapad, trapping half the enemies in a glowing cage. Nice work, Ethan said, ducking behind a fallen chair. Thank me later, she replied, throwing a small crystal sphere that burst into light. The blinded assassins screamed as Zisha finished them off. After 10 minutes of chaos, the last of the attackers fell. Ethan's hands were steady, but his heart was pounding. Zisha wiped blood from her cheek. They came for you, Ethan nodded. Yeah, I think the Vorn want revenge. Maybe they don't like that humans became symbols of unity. Tahlira looked worried. If they can attack here on Varix Prime, they could strike anywhere. The Council must know. Ethan helped her stand. Then let's go tell them. By morning, the trio stood before the High Council of Varix. The Great Hall was silent as holographic images of the attack played above them. Counselor Venn, an old alien with long crystal horns, spoke gravely. The Vorn Syndicate should have been destroyed. Their reappearance is troubling. Ethan crossed his arms. They're regrouping. They're testing defenses. This was a scouting strike, Tahlira added. Their technology has improved. The energy signatures were different, stronger. The council murmured among themselves. Some looked afraid, others angry. Zisha slammed her hand on the table. We should strike them before they strike us again. But Counselor Venn frowned. We cannot act without proof. The alliance is fragile. A wrong move could start another war. Ethan sighed. He had seen this before. Leaders afraid to act until it was too late. You wait for proof, they'll bring it with fire. The council dismissed them politely, but it was clear. They wouldn't move. Back at their quarters, Ethan paced the room. We can't sit and wait. The Vorn will attack again, and this time they won't stop at me. Zisha leaned on her sword. Then we fight without them. Tahlira hesitated. You mean, go against council orders? Ethan nodded. If we don't, more people will die. I didn't fight through one war to watch another begin. Talira looked between them, then sighed. I suppose logic agrees with you. You humans have the worst kind of influence, Zisha grinned. Welcome to the madness, the three planned quickly. They traced the attacker's signal to the outer deserts of VerexPrime, an abandoned mining station. If the Vorn were regrouping, that's where they'd be hiding. Night again. The desert stretched endless and quiet under two moons. Ethan led the way, wearing dark armor with his Terran insignia. Zisha moved like a shadow beside him, her twin blades ready. Talira followed, scanning the ground with her device. They reached the edge of a canyon where an old facility stood. Dim lights flickered inside. Energy readings high, Talira whispered. They're building something big. Ethan raised his blaster. Then let's crash their party. They moved in silently. The base was guarded by drones, but Talira hacked them, creating short bursts of static. Ethan and Zisha slipped through the gates unnoticed. Inside they saw the horror. The Vorn were assembling a pulse bomb, a weapon strong enough to disable every power grid on the planet. Ethan clenched his jaw. If they detonate that, millions die. Zisha's eyes burned. Then they die first, the battle began. Silent at first, then loud and fiery. Ethan fired burst after burst, taking cover behind metal crates. Zisha fought like a storm, her movements a blur of red and silver light. Talira overloaded the power cores, causing explosions that shook the walls. Ethan, the bomb is charging. Talira shouted, can you stop it? Maybe, but I'll need time. Ethan turned to Zisha. Then we buy her some. They fought side by side, back to back, against wave after wave of Vorn soldiers. Ethan's armor was dented, his arm bleeding, but he didn't stop. You humans never quit, Zisha said between strikes. Bad habit, Ethan grunted. Finally, Talira yelled, done! The bomb is disarmed. Before they could celebrate, the enemy commander appeared. Tall, armored, his voice deep and cold. You think you've won, human? You've only delayed the inevitable. He fired a plasma bolt that hit Ethan square in the chest. Ethan fell hard. Ethan! Talira screamed. Zisha roared and charged, clashing blades with the commander. Sparks flew. She fought with fury, fueled by rage and fear. Talira ran to Ethan, tears forming. Stay with me. Ethan coughed, pain burning through him. I'm fine. Just a scratch. Liar, she whispered. Zisha finally overpowered the commander, stabbing through his armor. As he fell, the base alarm screamed. The self-destruct system had activated. We have to go, Zisha yelled. Talira grabbed Ethan's arm. Can you walk? With help, he said. They ran as the base erupted behind them, the explosion lighting up the desert. The shockwave threw sand into the air like a storm. When they finally stopped miles away, they collapsed under the stars. The sky glowed with two moons and a distant fire. Talira checked Ethan's wounds. You nearly died. Ethan smiled weakly. Wouldn't be the first time. Zisha dropped beside them. You're reckless, human, but your kind has courage. Ethan looked at both of them, his voice soft but firm. We're stronger together. You two proved that tonight. They sat in silence, the desert wind whispering around them. For the first time, the two alien women looked at each other, not as rivals, but as sisters in survival. By dawn, the council received their report. The Vorn base was gone, their weapon destroyed, and their leader dead. The High Council couldn't ignore it anymore. They declared a new joint defense initiative, naming Ethan, Talira, and Zisha as its founders. Across the galaxy, people watched the news. The human and his bonds saved VerexPrime. But for Ethan, it wasn't about fame. As he sat with his companions under the rising suns, he simply felt peace. They had fought, bled, and nearly died. But they had done it together. The galaxy was watching. News feeds, hollows, and comm channels across hundreds of star systems broadcasted the story of Ethan Cole, the human who refused to follow alien rules, the human who chose both bonds, the human who had saved VerexPrime twice. But fame was never what Ethan wanted. He wanted quiet mornings, strong coffee, and maybe, just maybe, a life that didn't explode every other day. That peace, of course, was a dream. The Council's new initiative, the Triad of Unity, was now official. Ethan, Talira, and Zisha were to travel the galaxy, bringing peace, defending colonies, and teaching other species about cooperation and courage. Ethan scratched his head as he looked at the holographic map of troubled systems. Great, from one battle to another. Why do humans always get the hard jobs? Zisha smirked. Because we follow you. Whether you want us to or not. Talira adjusted her silver robes. We follow because we believe in your vision. The galaxy has not seen such courage in generations. Ethan smiled faintly. Well, I don't know about vision. I just know how to survive. Survival inspires unity, Talira said softly. Zisha rolled her eyes but didn't argue. Somehow they were in sync. Human, scholar, and warrior. 3 beings from different worlds, standing together as one. Their first mission took them to the Outer Rim, a sector still haunted by remnants of the Vorn Syndicate. Reports had come in of raiding parties, abandoned worlds, and terrified settlers. Ethan's ship, the Resolute, glided silently through the darkness. Its hull was dented and patched from previous battles, but it was fast, reliable, and ready. Talira studied the nav maps. Sensors indicate a Vorn fleet near Zifferon 6. They are preparing a blockade. Zisha cracked her knuckles. Then let's remind them why humans never give up. Ethan leaned back in his chair. And remind them why I get a bad reputation everywhere I go. Talira smiled. Humor is human survival instinct. As they approached Zifferon 6, the Vorn fleet detected them immediately. Red lights flashed on the screens. Warning sirens filled the cabin. Looks like they've been expecting us, Ethan muttered. Zisha activated the weapon systems. Then we'll give them a welcome they'll never forget. The first wave of Vorn ships launched, their energy cannons glowing like molten fire. Ethan piloted the Resolute with precision, weaving between blasts. Talira provided shield support from the co-pilot station, creating temporary energy barriers to absorb fire. Zisha fired back with expert marksmanship, taking down one enemy ship after another. The battle was chaotic, loud, and terrifying, but together they moved as one. Human instincts, alien wisdom, and pure warrior skill blended perfectly. Finally, the Vorn commander appeared, a massive battleship black as void. With energy spikes bristling along its hull, Ethan frowned. That one looks familiar. Talira studied the scans. It's a new model. Faster, stronger, more destructive. Zisha's voice was steady. Then we take it down first. The trio worked in perfect harmony. Ethan dodged blasts, Talira calculated weak points, and Zisha directed precise strikes. Their teamwork, forged in fire and chaos, made them unstoppable. With a final synchronized attack, the Vorn flagship exploded, sending debris scattering across space. The remaining ships, leaderless, fled. Back on Zifferon 6, the settlers cheered. Aliens and humans alike celebrated their deliverance. Ethan, Talira, and Zisha walked through the town, receiving gratitude and awe from everyone they met. A young alien boy approached Ethan. Human hero. Will you stay? Ethan knelt down. I can't stay forever, but I promise to return if the galaxy needs me. Talira handed the boy a small silver charm. And remember, courage and wisdom are not gifts of one species alone. Zisha added, fight for each other. Protect your home. That's what heroes do. The boy nodded, eyes shining, and ran off to tell everyone about the human who refused limits. The news of the Triad of Unity spread like wildfire. Planets that had long been in conflict began to communicate. Pirates surrendered. Minor rebellions dissolved. Even distant worlds sent envoys to learn from Ethan and his companions. The human who had only wanted coffee and peace had now become a symbol of hope. But with influence came enemies. The Council of Purity, still bitter about Ethan's defiance and the Vorn attacks, had begun to conspire. They spread rumors, questioning his judgment and claiming the dual bonds were unnatural and dangerous. Ethan ignored most of it. Talira and Zisha handled the political fallout, presenting calm arguments and evidence of peace. Slowly, the galaxy began to listen to reason, not fear. At the same time, small groups of humans who had fled wars across the stars heard of Ethan's courage and decided to join him. Ships began following him, bringing volunteers eager to fight for justice. Looks like I'm recruiting a small army, Ethan said one night, staring at the stars. Zisha grinned. Better than getting bored. Talira smiled softly. You have inspired more than soldiers. You have inspired belief, Ethan shrugged. All I did was pick both. Months passed. Together, the Triad visited dozens of worlds, settling disputes, rebuilding destroyed colonies, and training defenders. Their teamwork became legendary. Stories spread of the human who could inspire aliens to unity, of Talira's wisdom guiding decisions, and Zisha's unmatched combat skill protecting the innocent. On one world, they stopped a civil war before a single shot was fired. On another, they intercepted a Vorn remnant preparing an ambush. Everywhere they went, people whispered, "The human chose both, and now we all benefit." Even members of the High Council admitted it. Rules were bending, traditions were evolving, and unity was stronger than ever. One quiet evening, as the trio rested aboard the Resolute, Ethan looked at both women. "You know," he said, "this whole thing, it didn't start as anything grand. I just didn't want to hurt anyone by choosing." Talira reached out and touched his arm. "And yet you have changed the galaxy. Humans act in ways that are unpredictable, and sometimes that is exactly what the universe needs." Zisha leaned back, smirking. "I admit I didn't believe it at first. But you are something else, human." A storm wrapped in stubbornness, Ethan laughed softly. "Thanks, I think." Then he looked out the viewport, seeing countless stars stretching to infinity. "I guess this is my life now. Traveling, fighting, teaching. Never boring." Talira's voice was calm. "It is life worth living," Zisha added, "and it's better with us at your side." Ethan nodded, feeling a warmth he hadn't realized before. Two alien women, once strangers, were now his closest companions, not just by tradition, but by choice, trust, and loyalty. In the years that followed, the Triad of Unity became a legend. The story of Ethan Cole was taught in academies across the galaxy. Children heard of the human who refused limits, the scholar who guided wisdom, and the warrior who defended life. Aliens began to rethink their rigid laws. Human ideals, choice, courage, compassion, spread to worlds that had long forgotten them. The Vorn Syndicate never returned in full strength, intimidated by the unity the Triad inspired. Other threats arose, of course, but none could match the power of courage combined with wisdom and strength. And somewhere, in the quiet moments between missions, Ethan would sip his coffee, Talira would read her scrolls, and Zisha would sharpen her blades, laughing softly at the chaos that seemed to follow them wherever they went. The galaxy had changed, not because humans were stronger or more advanced, but because of something far more powerful. The simple, stubborn, unyielding human spirit in the end, the choice that had seemed so small, choosing both alien women instead of one, had sparked something far greater than anyone had imagined. It had sparked hope. It had sparked unity, had sparked a new era in the galaxy. And Ethan Cole, the human who just wanted to do the right thing, found himself at the center of it all, with two incredible companions by his side. Together they were unstoppable. Together they were the Triad of Unity.